guys, Crafty Josephine here. Today I'm going to work on making a jumbo gnome holding a latte or a hot chocolate. I haven't decided yet. But my video where my jumbo gnome was holding a pumpkin latte, I don't know what happened, but most of the video was black and it comes in at minute 40 and I didn't even realize it when I uploaded it. So I want to try to fix that problem, if you will, in this video. So I have some patterns for you. Similar to the last one. So this is the base of the gnome. As you know, I like to make mine cone shape. So the bottom is a circle, and then because he's so large, my compass isn't big enough to make the semicircle that I need, so I'm going to do it kind of the old-fashioned way with a string and a marker here. And these are the special markers that will show up on black fabric. Maybe you're not going to use black fabric, so it won't be an issue for you, but if you are going to use black fabric, it's called Mark Be Gone, and you can get it at Joann's and probably a bunch of other places. So I have it set up here, and the mat that I have underneath, you can see here, this is an 18-inch mat, excuse me, so that helps out a little bit here. And I have it going off a little bit on the edge there just because that's my selvage, so I'm not going to count that. But I'm just going to go ahead and make my semicircle, quarter circle I should say. And I'm going to go ahead and basically just hold my thumb there at this point and then 18 inches away and just go like this. Alright, so I've placed my circle base pattern on the fold there, and I'm going to trace around here. Showed up pretty good. I'm going to go over that. Some spots here. Alright. Alright, so I'm ready to start cutting out my patterns, and I pinned that so that my circle will stay nice, or my semicircle will stay nice and flat. Alright, so I'm ready to cut out the pattern for the hat. You can see this is the sweater I've chosen. It's red and black, kind of. I think it'll go nicely with buffalo plaid Christmas decor. But anyways, so I'm just going to make a triangle, and the base of my triangle is going to be 9 inches. And so of course the bottom of my sweater kind of wants to curve a little bit, but I'm going to try to work with that. And I'm just going to mark 9 inches. And this is the back of my sweater, so I'm going to go ahead and mark 4.5 because that's the middle. And that's just so I know where to go up with my point. I want my sweater to stop where this pattern starts coming in here at the top because I'm going to use that for my mittens. So I'm going to make mine 11 inches tall so that I have that pattern for the mittens. I'm just going to try to make a mark there. Hopefully you can see that on camera. You could make your sweater, you know, or your hat a little bit taller or a little bit shorter if you wanted. You just, obviously you want it to cover the cone, but, you know, an inch or two either way I think should be fine. And then just, you know, you want to make sure that you're going up from the center point of your 9-inch base. So from 4.5 you want to go up to whatever the height's going to be. So then I'm just going to go ahead and connect those dots. And I know this probably isn't showing up great on camera, but hopefully you can kind of see my triangle here. So this is one piece, and I need to do a second piece for the back of the hat, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that over and basically just repeat the process I just did. Okay, you guys will not believe how long it just took me to decide where on this sweater I wanted to take the mittens from. Just because, you know, there's patterns in different parts and I was deciding where I wanted to take it from. But ultimately what I decided was to take it from the bottom because I just thought that this would make such a nice mitten edge. So I'm going to take my mittens from the bottom of the sweater. If you end up taking it from the middle of your sweater or whatever, what I would just suggest is, you know, after you cut it out, you're going to want to fold down and stitch that edge so that it doesn't unravel. But I won't have to do that because I have such a nice edge. I'll just be sewing up here and I can leave the bottom edge alone. It'll probably make more sense later. So anyways, I need 4 of these, 2 going one way and 2 going the other way. So I'll just go ahead and trace those now. So I decided to go ahead and just pin that there. I traced with chalk again too. I don't know if you can see that white outline. And even that was still hard to see. So I just went ahead and pinned the pattern. Why make life more difficult than it needs to be? Alright, so I need to cut 2 arms. And so I'm going to cut them out of that same cotton that I cut the body out of. And I actually pinned my fabric ahead this time, just so it'll hopefully not move too much on me. And I've got my selvage down here at this end. And so I'm going to be kind of just measuring a little bit above that. But I want 2 rectangles that are 4 inches by 8 inches. And this time I'm going to use my chalk that I've had forever. There we go. And then 8 inches up from there. And it worked out good. Still 4 inches up here at the top. There we go. Alright, so I just need to cut 2 of those. If you're wondering what this is, I had used some iron-on, like plasticky stuff on this. I don't even remember what that project was, which is weird. You would think I would remember that, but I don't. Alright, so I've put the right sides of my mittens together and I've pinned them, and I'm just going to go ahead and sew them up. Like I said, if you didn't have a nice edge on the bottom of your mitten, you'd probably want to fold that over and sew that down first, and then go ahead and sew your two mitten pieces together. Alright, so I've pinned my hat pieces together, right sides facing each other, and I'm going to go ahead and sew those together. And the same thing goes, I have a nice bottom edge here from my sweater, so I don't need to sew the bottom edge under, but if you don't have a nice edge, you might want to go ahead and do that before you sew the sides together. Alright, I'm back at the crafting table, and now I'm just going to do a little bit of trimming. I'm going to use these scissors here to go ahead and cut around the rounded edge of the base of my cone. If you don't have scissors like these, you could just cut notches. Alright, so I've decided I'm going to start working on the mug that my gnome is going to hold. And in the other video, he was holding a pumpkin latte, but now this gnome is going to hold, I think he's going to hold a hot chocolate. I think that's what I've decided on. I've spent way too much time thinking about this, you guys. This I just am leaving here as kind of an example of the top of a latte if you wanted to do like a heart shape latte or whatever. If you've never needle felted before, it's pretty time consuming, but it's really not that hard. And I'm going to put a link down below of the video that I watched when I wanted to first start getting into this. This is just fiber fill, and the reason I'm using this is because the mug he's going to hold is pretty big. And I've decided his mug will be gray, but I don't want to have to use that much of my wool roving to make the mug because it's kind of expensive stuff. I mean, a little goes a long way, but I don't want to have to make the whole mug out of that. So I'm going to use the fiber fill in the middle, and it'll get covered up by the roving. And so really, all you need to do is shape your wool the way you want it to be, and then to get it to stay, you'll use these needles to poke it, and after a very long time, it will stay in place. Alright, so normally if I was just going to leave it like this, I would keep working at that a lot to make it look a lot smoother than it is. But because I'm going to cover it with whipped cream, it doesn't need to be perfect. And I might still work on it a little. But in fact, I probably didn't even need to do this middle section in brown because it's all going to be covered up by the whipped cream. So let me show you how I do that. I've made this on my smaller gnome mugs before, but I've never made it for a large one, but I think it'll be pretty much the same except just bigger. So I'm going to make basically, I guess you would say kind of like a long skinny, I don't know if you'd call it a cylinder, but it's something like that. And just poke a line. You can kind of twist it too to help it get the shape that you want. If you're using one of these and you're new to that, just know that it's great to hold your project and, you know, to take the needle as you're going through, but things can stick if you work too long in one spot. My son was making something and I now have this wool permanently stuck here. I could tear it off, but it would leave a gigantic hole. So just know that you want to pick your project up from time to time and not let it become permanently attached to your board. I think he got a little needle happy. Alright, so for my smaller gnomes, I use a small plastic bag for like sandwiches, but since this gnome's so big, I'm going to use a gallon's Ziploc bag. And I'm going to fill that with some rice. I'm going to tape these corners. make it kind of hexagon shaped. Alright, so I've been stuffing for a while and I'm getting close to being done, but sometimes I just need to take a break from whatever I'm doing. And so what I want to work on for a little bit is his beard. And I've decided to go with this real fun, long-haired, shaggy white fur that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And you can see about how big I want it. I want it almost as wide as what I have, but just a little bit shorter, I think. So let's see here. I like to use a blade, and then I'm going to be making kind of like a U shape, and I don't want it to go quite all the way down. So a little bit longer than I need it. And I have it on top of a cutting mat. Alright, that looks good. And I chose white just because I like it to be bold and stand off whatever color it is I'm working with. So since I have these dark colors, I thought a nice light colored beard would look nice and pop off nicely. So that will be his beard. And now I'm going to show you how I'm going to make his nose. So for my last large gnome, I actually had these large wooden balls that were maybe like 1.5 inches or 2 inches big, but I'm all out of those. So I'm just going to make a soft nose. And I'm going to use this lid that I have, and I think it's about 3.5 inches wide. It's about the same size as a coffee mug, so if you had a coffee mug, you could use that. And I'm just going to trace this real quick. So now that I've cut the circle out for my gnome nose, I went ahead and I doubled up some tan colored thread and I knotted it, and I'm just going to gather this up. So making pretty big stitches. Alright, so I went ahead and pinned up the opening to my gnome body, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the ladder stitch. I got my thread knotted, and I'm going to use the ladder stitch just to close that opening up. And I have a lot of this fiber fill that's stuck to his body, but later I'll just use a piece of tape, or if you had a lint roller, you could use that to remove all that extra fiber fill. Alright, so I decided that I want to put a pom-pom on the end of my gnome hat just to give it a little extra flair. And so I cut out a circle pattern, and it's about, I think, 2.5 inches across. And that's just going to be the size of the pom-pom I'm going to make, so it's going to be a little smaller than the nose, which is fine. And I have this black fur. And if you don't have a razor blade, or a X-Acto knife, excuse me, to cut your fur with, you can do it with scissors. I would recommend using a smaller pair than this if you have it. And you just go from underneath, real careful, because you don't want to cut the fur on top. You just want to get the fabric part on the bottom here. And you stay underneath and you cut your circle. Alright, so just like I did with the gnome nose, I'm going to go ahead and gather this circle around with my stitching, and I doubled my thread and knotted it. I'll just stick to the outer edges here. Alright, so I was just deciding about where I want to put my beard, and I like it to hang pretty close to the bottom right there, maybe even overhang just a little bit. That's my personal preference. But I'm going to glue it, not all the way, but just enough to get it in its spot. Look at that. That is so much fur. Just so that it stays in its spot. So I know, like, while I'm doing the hat, where the beard is going to be. Alright. And now that I have those figured out, I can start working on the arms. And so I'm going to start by stuffing the arms and the mittens. So as you can see, his hat fits pretty close to his body, but there's a little bit of space in there, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that in with some fiber fill. If you wanted your hat to you know, kind of slouch over to the side, you'd probably want to make a longer one than this. So I think mine was, what did I say, 11 inches long, so you might want to go longer than that with a body this size. Otherwise, you could also just, when you're sewing up your cone, you could curve it over to the side, or not fill all the way to the top so that you can squish his head down in the hat. Alright, so now it's time to attach the cup of hot chocolate to the mitten, and just got a little bit of red thread here. Kind of decide about where I want his hand to be. Alright, so I decided I am going to go ahead and put his little mitteny hand right through the mug holder right there. And I'm just going to use a couple stitches to secure it. So I'm just using a little bit of tape wrapped around my hand here, and I'm going to try to get up some of this excessive amounts of polyfill. Oh, I'm going to take my pins out. Alright, so if you liked this video and you want to see more from Crafty Josephine, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And also I just wanted to let you know that you can follow me on Pinterest and you can see other gnomes that I've made. So if you have any requests for what video I should do next, feel free to check out my Pinterest or my Etsy shop and see the other gnomes that I make and let me know what you'd like to see. Alright, you guys, have a great day. See you later.